Welcome back, guys. So this is where we left it off on the building the question box, and I hope you guys are still liking this series. Please like, share and subscribe, and let's just set that up client up there. And then now we're going to be starting with authentication, working on the back end, right? So I just love to putting my back end just right in the base directory of my folder, right? So right here I'll say npm start, yarn start, whatever, yarn init, and then the question here, you just do that. This is the backend to Quora clone, and then the entry server.js, and the repository is that, and then the author is that, and that. Right, so now what we need to do is we need to add some dependencies, right? So while we install the dependency, we will say yarn add. We need to use ES6, so we need babel -node at babel /preset -env. We also need finally at babel -core, and then we need express because we'll be using express, so we add express, as this will be our library or framework that we'll be using for our server. We need mongoose for our database. We need formidable for body parsing. We need cores to allow our our React app to interact with our server. We need .env to hide our API keys. We need Cloudinary for potential file uploads, and then we need bcrypt for hashing our passwords. And then what else do we need? So currently this is what I'm thinking we might need. If there's anything else that we might need, excuse me, I'll be adding that. But then finally, because I do not want to be restarting the server, we need Nodemon, so I have to flag that away from the rest. I say yarn add -d, and then I say Nodemon. So this is all the dependencies that we need, so you guys can just pause the video and then just copy all this, right? So while that is downloading and everything, what we need to do is we now need to set up MongoDB, right? So then what we do with MongoDB is, let's say MongoDB, we need to get our MongoDB up and running. And we also need Cloudinary, but currently right now we're focusing on authentication. This video will be on authentication, and yeah, so this video will be just plain authentication with express session, because we need to handle everything securely. So it means that we'll be having server-side sessions, right? And we won't be using any JSON web tokens. So you guys might be learning something new, and that is nice. So if you like this video, this helps the channel out. Please like, share and subscribe, and comment down below on what you want to see next, things like that. So let's get this MongoDB up and running. Okay, so I guess I've already made a cluster for this, but then there's nothing in this collections. So now what we want to do is you'll go to new project, create a new project, go through all the steps. So now let's just verify there's nothing here. I don't know what happened here. I remember making this, but I don't remember interacting with this. Yeah, it's clean. So now what we want to do right here, once you've created your cluster and everything, you want to come to database access, because we need to access this database. So for that, we now create a new user, and then this user, let's just say test, and auto generate this password. That will be the password. Obviously yours will be different, and then we do that, right? So let me just make sure that I have this password saved up somewhere, and then let's just get this node modules right there, right out. And then we close this client for a bit. We forget about the client for a bit, and then what we want to do is we want to have a .env file, whereby that will be the password, and then we add this user. Network access is also something that you want to do. I came here to add IP, and what I did is there was an allow all access. There'll be 2 buttons here, and then that's what you see here. So I won't be including my IP address. I'll allow any access from any network for this tutorial. Right, so now you want to connect your application using that Mongo URI. You copy that, then we're good to go. So now what you do here in your .env say Mongo URI, and then you paste that connection string. You take your password, and then here where you have your password, you just paste that there. And then I like to change my database name, that is this one highlighted there, and then I'll change that to Quora, capital letters, so choose Quora clone. Alright, so that will be my Mongo URI. So now, because we'll be dealing with authentication, we need session secret. So session secret key. I'm lazy to go to the internet for a secure password. So normally I'd go to the internet and get a secure password that is maybe 2000 bytes long, things like that. 2000 bytes or 2000 in length? 2000 in length. So this will be our session secret, guys. Obviously you don't want to do this in production or in a real app, but then for tutorial purposes that should do. So now we need to set up our Babel, right? So say babel rc, and then you want to say preset and add babel / preset -env, and that should be it with your Babel. You want to come to your package.json, you want to add scripts, and then here we're getting that warning because of capital letters. Let's just put them down there like that. Perfect. And then now you want to add your scripts, and then in your scripts you want to add start. Here start, we'll say babel -node and server.js, and then you want to add your dev that we'll be using. We'll say Nodemon --exec babel -node server.js. Right, so that should be it. So now let's start up our server and let's see if we actually have our package.json set up properly. So now we say import express from express. We import mongoose from mongoose. We import course from course. And now that I'm thinking about it, is we also need express session and connect Mongo because we want to handle server-side sessions. So let's just come here while we're setting up our boilerplate server. So you want to add express session, and then you also want to add connect -mongodb -session. So this is the 2 libraries that we'll be using for session handling. So now let's just go back here. I want to say import .env from .env, and then what else do we want to do? So now that we do that, now I want to have my express session because this is a middleware that we need that is already installed now. We also want to get Mongo store from connect MongoDB .env. So now I want to initialize our .env.config like that. We want to initialize our app. Let's just give that a space like that. So now we've set up almost everything that we need. So now we need to handle our middlewares, right? So now before we handle any middlewares, let's just start up the server and let's see if the server package.json is actually set up properly, so that if there's anything that is wrong that we can fix before we move any further with this whole thing, right? So let's just say started. So now let's go to that, and then let's say yarn run dev. Alright, so let's see if we have our servers, just making sure that Babel is working fine with our server, and if we get that, perfect. So now we know that Babel is working fine. We can run ES6, so we can just that part only. So now let's start with our middlewares. Alright, so our middlewares, we talking about cores, we talking about express session. Those are our middlewares. And then so now we just want to say app.use cores, and then we want to set the origin. That will be localhost 5000. Alright, HTTP that localhost, not 5000 but 3000, because our React app is 3000, and that should be fine for our origin. And then we want credentials to be true. Right, so now this is what we need for our cores. So now we want to start with our Mongo store. So now we say const Mongo store. We say Mongo store is equals to Mongo store, and then we pass express session there, right, because it needs to be connected with express session. That's what we do. And then we say const store is equals to new Mongo store. We need to create a new instance now, and with this instance we need collection. So collection will say user sessions, and then we need the URI. So the URI, we are referring to this connection stream. You see this connection stream, this is the one that will allow us to connect to MongoDB. So now how we do this is we put it in a variable, because we'll end up using it again when we connect to MongoDB without using the Mongo store, because here we're just setting up express session and connect Mongo so that they can work together in terms of like session handling. So what we'll do here, we say const Mongo URI is equal to process.env.mongo URI. So this name should be exactly as this name, guys. I cannot stress that as much. Right, so now once we have that done, we now say our URI is just Mongo URI, and then we need expires. Right, so expires is the date of expiration, right? So I just like to set it for 10 days myself. So it's 10 times 60 times 60 times 24 times 1000. So this will be 10 days, and then if you want to change this to 1 day, you just change the 10 to 1. If you want this to be 365, you just write 365 days. That is a entire year. So this is how you work with expires and everything, and then that should be everything that we need for our Mongo store. So now we need to hook this store up with express session, so that whenever there's a session which is made, express session will automatically store that session to Mongo store. I hope that makes sense. But then now we say app.use express session, and then in express session we need the name of this cookie that we'll be sending. So I'd like to call it sid_sid myself, and then we need the secret, and the secret is like it says, secret which only you and your server will know, so which is this one that you want to copy exactly, and then you say process.env.session secret, and then you need the resave, set that to false. We need the save uninitialized, we save that to false, and then now you need your store, and then on your store you use the store that we set up there here on top. This is the store which express session will be using. And then finally we need to set the cookie, and then here on the cookie we need HTTP only, we set that to true. We need secure, so this is only set to true only on production, so we say process .env.node environment is equal to production, and this will give back a boolean of true or false. And then you need expires, max age, yeah, you say it as max age, and you just want to have this the same as your Mongo store. You paste that there, and then you need the same site flag, which is false, and then the rest is I don't normally use. So this is what will help us make server-side sessions, and we'll dive in deeper when we handle the logging in and the logging in. That's where the express session will be used, and so on and so forth. Right, so now what we do is we now say now we're done with our middlewares. Now this should be it. Now we want to connect our database itself, not for session handling, but then for storing the usernames, the messages and everything. So now say MongoDB connection and configs. I know it can be a bit not understandable, but why we now doing again with MongoDB? Meanwhile, we did this here. So there's a slight difference because that other part was for session handling. This one is for storing data that we'll be getting from the user, so on and so forth, and all those from your formalities, right? So now what we want to do with MongoDB, we say mongoose.connect. So we want to connect with that Mongo URI. Remember that Mongo URI that we set here, which is the same that you'll be using here. So the connection is the same. So now we need some few property, which is use new URL parser, set that to true. We say use unified topology, set that to true, and then create use create index, set that to true. So this is what we'll be needing. However, for code readability, I like to just do that so that I could have like what we call to get those so that I avoid typos and everything. So I just like to separate that, and I say connection, I say MongoDB underscore connection options, right? So I just like to do this so that everything is readable on my end. I just write MongoDB connection options, and then MongoDB will return back a callback. We'll have a callback of an error, and then if there is any error, what I want to do is I want to return a console.error of that error. And then if there's no error, I wanna console.log connection to MongoDB was successful. Right, so this is basically it with our MongoDB. We should be successfully connected, and then now we want to have our server configs, right? So we say server connection and configs. Right, so this is what we do for our server. And then now once we have that said and done, we now want to say const port is equal to process.env.port, and set that to 5000 if it is not there. So this is for production, whereby we'll be getting that port from, maybe let's say if you deploy this on Heroku will give you a port, maybe port 1100 and whatever. So now on production, if that is not there, we fall back to 5000, and then we say app.listen at that port, and then return a callback, whereby we'll say console.log, we'll say server started on port, and then we run that port. So now this should start nicely without giving any errors. So this is the basically boilerplate code. So let's see if we are not getting any errors indeed. So I say yarn run dev. Right, so let's see if everything goes smooth, and then if everything goes smoothly, and then we start with our logic of there we go. So now everything has started. This is basically the boilerplate code that you will definitely run into when you want to play around with Express and Express session, right? So now let's create a model folder. So in the model folder we want to have which will be user, right? And then we want to have a file which will be users.js. So you want to import mongoose from mongoose because we want to have our schema. I want to say const user is equal to mongoose.schema, and in the mongoose.schema what we want to do is we want the username and then type of string. We don't want a lot, and we'll say required true, and we also want the password, set that type of string, and then required true. So basically I'd say this should be it, but then you can add emails, everything, so on and so forth. But then just to keep it simple, we just want the username and the password. So now what we then do is we want to have our model, right? So when I say export const user model is equals to mongoose.model, and then we want to give that model a name, right? So the name that we'll be giving it will say user model, and then we say user schema, right? So now that's what we have, but then we also need a session model because we also want to interact with that session. So I want to say user sessions, right? So now there's one thing that you have to understand that about Express session for session handling. Let me just say user sessions.js. So user sessions, why are we doing this? So we're doing this because we want to be able to interact with the session so that we can look up on MongoDB, so that we do not duplicate sessions and all that, right? So then what we do is we then create a model for that having the same name as this one, right? So that when this is created, right, our model can interact with that. But then the key comes back to knowing how Express session will have its structure, right? So now let me just show you guys that. So what I mean by this is we say mongoose, and then we want to say const. So I'm going to say const user sessions is equals to mongoose.schema. And then how Express session will have its structure, it will have an expires, right? And then that expires will be a type of date. So here we're just trying to counteract that so that we can be able to manipulate it and play around with that, right? So required true, and then we'll have a folder, not a folder, but then another entity will be session, if not sessions, but I think it is sessions. I think it's session, and then this will be a type of object, and then we'll say required. We set that to true, right? So if it's not session, it's sessions, but then obviously if it does on another field, we'll then rename this to session. That's not a problem, that's not a train smash. So then say export const user sessions, and then this should be user sessions schema, and this one should be user sessions is equals to mongoose dot model, and then user sessions, and then we say user schema. So making sure that this model right here, the name of it is the same as this one, so that's where everything comes down, right? So now that we've exported that and we've made our model for username and password, so now let's create our controller. So here we're going to be focusing with the MVC pattern, but even though our view is React, but then we're adhering to MVC patterns. So now let's make our controller, right? So and then in our controller we'll have an auth controller, right? So that will be auth controller. Just write author just like that what we call icon thing. So we'll say auth controller.js. So we need formidable here for body parsing. We need .env to get our session secret. We need Cloudinary for potential file uploads. Cloudinary from Cloudinary. Let's just make the C as a capital letter. And then what else do we need? We need those models for session and user model. So say import user model from, go back that, we go up twice with the controller, not controller, why am I going to controller? I go to model, I go to user, I go to users, right? And then also need the user sessions from, because we don't want to duplicate sessions in our database. That's what we want to validate, and then we get that, right? And then now here we have basically what we need, I don't know, and we'll say .env.config, and then bcrypt. We also need bcrypt to hash the password. We need bcrypt, I nearly forgot that, from bcrypt, and then if there's anything that I forgot we'll add. So now what we need is we need to first config our Cloudinary. So now how we do this, so Cloudinary is where we'll be hosting our files, because personally it's not advisable to you have your media files within databases but then have them in a cloud stored area and then maintain them there. So now we want to log in. So if you guys don't have an account, that is pretty much, that's pretty much straightforward. You guys can just sign in, and it is really easy for making an account on Cloudinary. It's not rocket science, so just make an account there. And then now let's get, this is what we need to be able to connect to our Cloudinary: the cloud name, the API key, and the API secret. So now let's get that cloud name. We go to our .env. So it's vital, guys, your .env is where you host all your secure, what's the correct name? This is where you host all your keys, all things that are secure and everything. So API key and then API secret, and we copy that API secret, API secret, right? So now that we have everything, what we want to do is we now want to config that. So now we say const, because we have to use the v2 of Cloudinary. We say Cloudinary is equal to the Cloudinary dot the v2. That's what we want to use. And then we say Cloudinary dot config, and in this config we need the cloud underscore name, which we say process dot env dot cloud name. So remember this is how we have everything named: cloud name, API key, API secret. So make sure that you also have that named as that. So yeah, we can close that. So we do that, and then we say cloud name, and we'll say API underscore key is process, come on man, is process dot env dot cloud name, but then API key. Finally, API underscore secret is process dot env dot API underscore secret. So just make sure that also your keys will be definitely different than mine. This, we won't be having the same keys, so just make sure, because this won't really work for you guys. And then now just get an account and then just make your own keys. Right, so now that we have this, now we have to start up with our sign up logic. So in signing up, we need a user's profile, the username and the password. That's all we need for sign up. So how I like to make my controller, I like to have my controller, basically my Express app, I like it to be object orientated. So now I say class, and I say Auth Controller, and then now I need to make a sign up function. So unfortunately, as much as we have ES6, it allows me to run this function, unless maybe I just haven't found the correct way of doing things, but then that should be fine by me. So here we'll be taking in the request and response. So now what we want to do is we want to use formidable so that it body passes our request. So formidable will be formidable that. So now what we need is we need to say new formidable dot incoming form, and then we now wanna try catch. So this is how I like to make my server. Always try catch, because it might happen that everything that you do here might not be because the user did something wrong, but then because of your server being down. So if there's anything that happens with your server, you want to return a response.status of 500 internal server error .json. Send a message saying that server error, then you say server currently down, please try again. Server currently down, try again later. Right, why should we ask them to please? So now we've done that. So now we know that if anything happens with our server, there's user interactivity, if that even exists. So now we want to say form.pass. We want to pass that request that we got from this user, and then now we get back a callback which will be having an error, fields or files. So the fields will be the name, the username, or maybe anything that's textual, and then the files will be the all media files, videos, images, so on and so forth. So now what we expect from this user is we now want to destructure the fields. So we say, before we destructure, remember, handle errors. So if any errors, you want to console dot error the error. However, this is for you to debug, but then now you want to return a response, because this is also not a problem of an end user. Your server failing to what we call body pass the request. So now you say network error, I believe, and then you say failed to register. Failed to register. Right, and then say try again later. Alright, so we told them there's the network error, you told them there's a server error, so it's always great to communicate with your end user. So now once we've done that, is if there's no error, we now want to destructure the fields, and in the fields there's what? There's the username and the password. So now say const username and password. So that's what we are getting from this end user, and for obvious reasons we'll need a confirmed password, and this is basically the password that is confirmed by the client, and this is from field Alright, but then I won't be including this confirm password because I just want to keep it as simple as possible. So yeah, basically you will just be checking if this password is not equal as that, right? So what we're expecting is just the username and the password from fields. And then now we also expect the files, which is the profile image. We say const image, and this is coming from files. We destructure that. So now what we want to do is we want to say if username is not there or password is not there or image is not there, because we expect everything from this user. But then obviously maybe some apps might not need the profile image. It's not a mandatory thing. In our app it's mandatory. So we just do it like that. So if those things are not there, we now want to return a response.status of 400 saying a bad request, a JSON sending a message saying all fields are required. So basically that will be it with validating everything. So if this user passes this part, it means that there's everything that we need. There's one thing that I forgot in the models of the users. We want to have the username being unique. Unique is equal to true. We don't want to duplicate user, and it's something that we'll also check ourselves. So now what we then do is we now want to check if the password dot length is greater than or equal to 6, and then if that is not the case, if password is less than 6, if password is less than 6, I want to return a response dot status of 400.json with the message saying that password has to be at least 6 characters. Yeah, at least 6 characters. Right. So now if this user passes this validation, now the user has the image, has the password correct. We now want to check this username, that does this username exist within our database. If it exists, bad request, no duplicate users allowed. And now say const. So now because we're interacting with MongoDB, this is very key. You want to asynchronously communicate with MongoDB. Now that's where you come here and you say async, and then you say is user existent. I don't know. So we say await, and we say user model dot. We want to bring that like this, we want to bring that like that. So we say user model dot find one by ID, whereby the underscore okay, so the thing is I've never used this by ID. Let's just say find one, but then I think also by ID. Let's just try it out. Not by ID, man, because we're gonna find by the username. Yeah, obviously we're gonna find by the username, so ID won't work. So we wanna say we wanna find the one whereby the username, let's just see if I said username just to be exact. We said username, right? They want to find one where the username is the username that we got from this user, right? So now what we do is we want to check if is user existing. So if this user is existing, we want to return a response dot status of 400, or I could return a status of 44, which is not found. But then yeah, let's just say status of 44.json because it's not found, and then we say message user with this account already exist. Or user with this username already exist. That's what we want to do, right? So now if then this user passes this validation, now this user is safe to sign in, but then we want to hash that password because we don't want to save a raw password. This is also something that you have to keep in mind. So now because we're using bcrypt, you have to generate a salt, and then you say await because bcrypt is asynchronous. Await bcrypt.gen salt, and then you give it a number of rounds. I like to say 15. Why? I don't know. And then you want to say const hashed password is equal to await bcrypt.hash, and then you want to hash this password. You provide what you want to hash, which is the password with the salt. So the salt basically is 15, so I believe it takes this thing and give it just, I don't know, it sort of like works the same way as the Caesar cipher. I don't know if you guys know Caesar cipher. So now we have that password being hashed, right? So now you want to say const new user is equals to new user model, and then we create that document, and then we want to have that username. And then before we save this user, see one big mistake that I made before I even try and save this user or anything, or even make salts or anything, right? Before I even do this, but then let's just comment this down because obviously I don't want to repeat myself. Before I do this, remember that image that we have here, we need to save it in Cloudinary. Cloudinary will bring back a URL that we have to save in the database, right? And in the user model, this is what I forgot here, to add profile image, which is a type of string, and we say required true. Our app requires a profile image whether they like it or not. If they don't want, they just should leave it. So now what we do now is, before we get the most important, we say cloudinary.upload, and then here we want to upload image. We want to upload image.path. That's very important. This image has properties, and that property that we want is the path. And then now we want to specify the folder where we want to save this within Cloudinary, which will be / because we want what we call that, we say folder, we say Quora, and then we say / profile images, profile image. And then because we just want to separate them, should I separate them? If this maybe was production, I don't know, I could do something like this so that I can manage each and every person's profile image, and then I put in the username, because it will be Quora profile image of, maybe say the username is Junior, and let's say another username is Ben, it will be profile Ben, right? Things like that. So now after doing that, Cloudinary will bring back a callback having an error or some results, right? So this result, so we need to first handle the error. We say if there's any error, I want to console.log console.error, and then I want to return a response.status of 500 because this is the problem by you. And then you want to say message, and then this error most probably could be, let's say file, let's say image upload error, and then we say failed to upload your profile image, verify media, verify file type, because it could be the file that this person gave Cloudinary doesn't accept, Right, so we say image upload error, failed to upload your profile image, verify file type, or let's say image, yeah, file type, it's fine. So now if there's no error, we definitely got some results from Cloudinary. So we can say const image underscore URL, whereby we'll say results dot secure URL. So why secure URL? Is because you want to get the HTTPS URL, and then that's where you now want to start out now saving and doing everything. So now once that is done, you bring this to life again, because now before we save, we want to hash the user's password. Alright, and that should be it. So now how we then continue is now we have the salt and the password. So now we want to say const new user is equal to new user model, and then we have the username. This is the shorthand for ES6, and then you have the password. So unfortunately the password I just have to say hashed password like that. And also for the profile image, I'll have to verify that is named like this. This is the image underscore the image underscore URL. There should be the image underscore URL. So let's make sure the profile image is like that, so we have the same very things, right? So now this should save our, not save, but then create a new instance of a user, like document. So now we want to save that user. We want to say const saved user is equals to await. So but then remember, you are waiting on a different function, because this now we're writing on another callback function, because we want to handle the saving of a user the moment their image is saved. But then due to us being in another function, we want to introduce asynchronous operations there, right? And what does that mean now is now we want to use await, because every time you use you interact with MongoDB, you want to have asynchronous operation. You want to say await user new user dot save, and then that should be it. And then once that is done, we want to return response dot status. Should I return outside this function or not? So yeah, once this is done, that's where I want to return a status of response the status of 201 saying created, because here we are creating a new user. We do not return a status of 200 because 200 says okay, and then we say new account has been created. So here we're saying created, because 201 says created and 200 says okay. So now here this should be our sign up logic. So now what we want to do is now we want to handle our what we call our logging in. So with logging in, there's some few things that we need to do, right? So now how we do this is, first thing we want to say login. We also want to request, I want to get the request and response, and we also need formidable. Those are just formalities. Come on, man, all the formalities. Alright, so now what we do is we want to try catch again, always, all day, every day. So return a response status of, let me just copy that catch because I don't want to be repeating one and the same thing, right? So just return that catch. So now what we want to do is we want to body pass. When I say form dot pass request, same thing, error, fields and files. So if there is any error, I want to return status of let's just copy that error there. So let's just copy this whole thing because it's just the same thing, and then we just replace that with this. So if there's any error, we just wanna also get that. But then now what we expect from the user is we expect the username and the password for logging in. This is coming from fields. Alright, so now what we want to do to validate this, we want to say if username, if not username means that it's not there, or not password means that it's also not there. We want to return response.status of 400.json, send back a message, and that message will be all fields required. And then now that we have that, what we want to do is we now want to look up this user, if this user does exist in the user model, right? So now we want to say const is user existing. We now want to say await. Remember, instance you introduce await, you want to introduce async. So now you want to say await user model dot find one, whereby the username, remember you want to make this an object, whereby the username is the same as the username. And then now what we do is we now say if not is existing user, because here we want to expect an existing user. You want to return a response.status of 400.json, and then we give back that error message saying that account with this username does not exist. Right, so now we have that. So now if this user passes that validation, meaning that this user does exist, so now we want to compare the password. Remember that the password is hashed. We want to validate that password. Is this password exactly what it is? Right, so now how we do that is we say const is password valid. We now say await, because bcrypt always is asynchronous. I say await compare, and then you want to compare the password that you are getting from the user with the one that is within the database. Right, so now for readability, I copy this password, is existing password, and I say const hashed password. I paste that there, and then I want to compare the hashed password with the non-hashed password. So I just like doing that for readability and all that. Right, so now what we do is we now say if not is password valid, we return a response.status of 400.json, and yeah, we want to return a 404 because the user does not exist. And then yeah, we want to return a 400 because that's a bad request. I'm send a message saying that invalid credentials. So yeah, it's just a personal preference. I don't like telling users that the password is invalid. I just like saying invalid credentials, or saying your username or password is not valid, things like that. I don't know, it's just personal preference. So but now if this user passes this validation, the username is valid and the password is valid. So now what then do we do? Before we create a session for this user, we want to first check if this username does not exist within our user session model, right? Because we don't want to duplicate the same user's session. So how do we do that? We now want to say const is user session available. I don't know, some bad name, but then at least it's, if you were to read this, you'd see is user session available. I don't know, I prefer writing my code like this. So now we want to say user session dot not session started, but then user sessions dot find or one, whereby, so now how do we find one? So now this is something that you have to know about. Let me just show you a structure of an express session. It will be expires, and then having the date there, and then there will be a session, which is an object, whereby there will be a cookie, if I'm not mistaken, that will be having whatever that it's having, and then there will be a user, right, whereby in this user we'll be putting the username. Right, so this is what we are looking. We're looking at an object like this, right? So now how do we access this part? So what we do is we want to say find one, whereby the session dot user. Alright, so this is what you do. So whereby the session dot user, and then is equal to whereby the session dot user dot username, I think, if I'm not mistaken, guys. But then we'll debug this obviously if it needs debugging, because yeah, I'll be accessing the object. So yeah, I say session dot user dot username is equal to the username. Right, so that is what I want to check. So now we can remove this if there's any debugging, you know, standard procedures. So now what we want to do is we want to say if not, I would say if is user session available. If this session is available, there's nothing that we want to create. We just want to return a response.status of 200 saying okay, and then .json, and then we want to send back what we call, because already if this session exists, that means that it's already there within this person's browser. I don't know if that makes sense, because what happens is with server sessions or with cookie sessions at all, the cookie will be within the browser until it expires, so there's no need for me to send back another cookie, things like that. So I can just send a message saying that already signed in. Right, and then now when this user doesn't have a session, what do I want to do? I want to say request dot session dot user. Right, now you see where this session dot user comes into play. So now I want to say this person must be username, whereby we are using the is existing user dot username, and then I also want to have this person's ID for anything that you want to use. So even though we won't be using it, but then normally I just do that. So now this request the session that user will be having this value. That is what we are querying here. So now if that is the case and that is done, I want to say response dot status of 200 saying okay. No, I just want to say response dot status of 200 dot send, and I want to send a request dot session ID. Right, that's what I want to send back to the user. So now this should handle my logging in and logging out, so on and so forth. Right, so I don't know how we're doing on time, but then right now what we want to do is, what is this thing? Okay, oh, that's from the compare cookie. So now what we want to do is, let's just sign up and then log in, and then on the next video we will now basically we'll be using Postman to sign up and sign in, and then on the next video we'll be now making forms on the React side, so that we can now connect or communicate with this authentication system that we have. So now while Postman is opening, I need to expose that controller. So by exposing this controller, I export this thing, and we need to add more features to this controller, whereby the client must check if this user is authenticated. So that will be on the next video, right? Because I don't want to make like fill up a lot of information and then miss you guys on everything, because controllers and handling sessions like this is very important. So now I want to say export default auth controller. So now what we want to do is we want to have a folder that is routes. So in this route, what I want to do, this is where I will be having my endpoint. When I say, come on man, say routes. So I just don't want to lose you guys. So I hope you guys like the way I'm handling things, and if you don't like, just comment down below, tell me what you guys would like to see and how you want to handle this series. So auth, but then I believe doing it like this in chunks will be helpful to not lose anyone, right? Say express from express, import auth controller from, get that from that controller, auth controller, right? Also const router is equals to express dot router. So const, I want to make an instance of that auth controller is equals to new auth, come on man, auth controller, and then I want to say router dot post. I want to post on the API, and then we're going to say user dash sign up, and then I want to have a request, a response, and then we use that auth controller dot sign up, and then remember it takes in request and response. That's what we want to pass in, and then that will handle all the tasks within our controller. I'll say router dot post, you want to say / API that, and then user dash sign in, same thing guys. So once we hear all the logic is handled by that controller, so now you see how everything is organized. Auth controller dot login, and then say request, and then the response, we push that there. So now we want to expose this controller, not controller but then route. So say export default router. We now take it to the server, the entry point of everything. So now we want to import that. We can use import auth route from that route auth that. So now we want to have our endpoints. We then will say end, say server and point. We then wanna say app.use, we wanna use the auth route. Right, now this should work, and those errors, don't worry about them. That must be probably because Nodemon was watching things, and we should worry about this actually. What is it saying? It's saying unexpected token. This is weird. Okay, let's debug. Thought this would be a clean breakout for us on this tutorial, on this video, but then apparently this thing doesn't want us to have a clean breakout. I think the error lies here. Okay, that's not there, the error is not there. Where is the error now? Request.session.user. Okay, let's see where the error lies. Let's comment this out. Let's see. We're just trying to decipher where the problem is coming from, so that we know this is how I debug my code, because there I see, because I'm lazy to read all this thing. Okay, let's just read unexpected token. Okay, line 24. 124 response. I believe that should be the same for everything, and then it's only breaking here. Okay, let's just comment this out. Let's see if that was that line which is breaking us, but then it doesn't make sense. It was that line, but then that is not making sense. Okay, so let's see what is happening here. So what is making this? Oh, because I made this an object and I didn't put in a message. Right, just those slight mistakes, guys. So this is how I debug my code. Comment things out, plug them in, and then see what's happening. So now we've successfully debugged this code. Now our postman is ready for us to actually test this out. So there was just some debugging there, and we got that done. So I like making videos like this, debugging with you guys, because code is not always good, guys. I don't want to lie to you. Always you face up with silly errors like that, because it didn't make sense to me, obviously, because why then is it failing on 124? Meanwhile there you get the sense. So now we say HTTP, and then we say local host 5000 / API - user API / user - sign up. Let's start there. I want to say post, and then body. It's expecting an image, we shouldn't forget. So I want to say user name, excuse me, and then the username is just say junior, and then password, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and then image, right, because it's expecting an image. Let's say image, and in this image I'll post picture. Let's see, I think maybe this one, right? So moment of truth. Let's see, let's sign up and let's see what response we get back there. And in our MongoDB, not MongoDB, man, in our server there's no error logs, and then now new account has been created. There we go. So now let's go to MongoDB. Let's verify if this thing is playing games with us, and let's see that. So we have MongoDB like that. So as you can see, this password is hashed, and we've saved the image in Cloudinary. So this is basically how you'd want to always manage your images. And this is, let me show you, this will be the image that I posted, which would be that one, right? So there's the image. It's now hosted on Cloudinary, and then I have the password, and then I have the username. So yeah, remember what I said to you of user sessions, right? So definitely you see this is the user sessions. So from what I knew is the moment I interact with MongoDB, this will create this. And remember that session there that I said for express session, it will definitely see, oh, this is the session which is available, then it uses that one because we named them the same, so that we can interact with it. So it's a thing that it's normally used so that you can interact with your session and handle your sessions very well. So now let's try and log in. So let's say sign in. So now this expects the username. Why am I saying params, man? Not in params. We want to go to body, right? So but then one more thing before I do this, we want to send back another request with the same username. We should get an error now. So let's see that user with this username already exists. There we go. So now we want to sign in. We go to form data. We want to say username, and in the username we want to say junior, and let's just send this like this. We want to see what happens here. Alright, I don't know. So let's just send that. We should get all fields are required. And then now let's send back a password with only 1 2. We should get invalid credentials, I believe. Invalid credentials, right? So let's say in 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, I believe. And then let's see if we get back a good response from this user. As you guys can see, we get the session ID. So due to this was what we'll be sending to the user, and the instance we send back a session ID, that session will be created within MongoDB, and also what will happen is the session will be embedded within our cookies, and it will be flagged as HTTP only, and we wouldn't be able to interact with it. So the way to know that a user is logged in, we'd have to send back a request back and forth to the database, or not the database, to the server, to see if the user has a session. Now let's check in our database in user sessions. Let's refresh this. Now you should see a new document here, right? And let's see that. Let's check that here. So now as you can see, what I meant is knowing for a fact that Express session will have expires and have a session whereby this session.user. But then now what we want to test is we want to test the mere fact of logging in again, and now we should get the response saying already signed in instead of this. Let's just run that again. Let's run that, and there we go. We get a message saying already signed in. And then if we go back and refresh this, there's no two documents because we do not want to duplicate user sessions. But then when the moment a session is what we call expired, this will delete, and then we also want to delete the session from the database the moment they log out. So now this will be it for the videos, showing you guys how you securely, there's like a secure way of handling user sessions on the server, not on the client. So now I hope you guys like this video. Please like, share and subscribe. It helps me out and keeps me motivated, and hoping to see you guys on the next video. Good